Rain lashed against the windows, each drop a tiny hammer against the glass. Thunder rattled the old house, shaking its very foundations and casting eerie shadows on the walls. Inside, huddled around a flickering candle, we were about to do something very stupid. The air was thick with anticipation and a hint of fear. "Are you sure about this, guys?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. The uncertainty in my tone mirrored the unease in my heart. The Ouija board sat on the dusty floorboards between us, an ancient relic that seemed to pulse with a life of its own. It seemed to glow in the dim light, casting an otherworldly aura that made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. "Don't be scared, Sarah," Jenna giggled, her eyes sparkling with a mix of excitement and nervousness. "It's just a game." But her words felt hollow even to her, a thin veneer over the palpable tension in the room. We all felt it, the shift in the air, the prickle of goosebumps on our skin. The room seemed to hold its breath, waiting. Mark, ever the skeptic, scoffed, breaking the silence with his usual bravado. "Yeah, Sarah, it's not like the ghosts are going to answer," he said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. He placed his fingers on the planchette, the heart-shaped pointer on the board. "Right, Emily," he taunted, challenging the unseen forces with a smirk. We waited. Silence. Just the pounding of the rain and the nervous thumping of our hearts. Then slowly the planchette began to move. It twitched. Then it slid across the board, stopping on the letter H. Our eyes widened. Jenna giggled nervously. Mark's face was pale. The planchette moved again, this time faster. "E-L-P," it spelled out. A chill ran down my spine. "Help? Who was asking for help?" Mark's voice was tight. "Okay, very funny, guys. Who's moving it?" But we all swore we were barely touching the planchette. It was moving on its own. Air grew heavy, suffocating. The single candle flickered wildly, casting grotesque shadows that danced on the walls. A sudden gust of icy wind swept through the room, even though the windows were tightly shut. The planchette continued its eerie dance across the board. E, it spelled. "Help me." The voice seemed to whisper from the very walls themselves, filled with a deep, chilling sorrow. Jenna's eyes were wide with terror. "Emily," she breathed. The name hung in the air, heavy and cold. We all knew the story. Emily, the young girl who had died in this very house 100 years ago. A loud thump from the attic made us jump. Silence followed, thick and heavy. Then came the slow, dragging footsteps. Each step was deliberate, heavy, like a giant dragging chains across the wooden floor above us. "What was that?" Jenna whimpered, her eyes darting around the room. Mark, trying to regain his composure, cleared his throat. "Probably just an animal," he said, but his voice shook. We wanted to believe him. We had to believe him. But the fear was a living thing now, coiling around our hearts, squeezing the breath from our lungs. The footsteps stopped right above us. It felt like whatever was up there was listening, watching. The planchette started moving again. This time it was frantic, almost aggressive. HELPMEPLEASE. The words were punctuated by the heavy thuds from above, each sound driving the terror deeper into our bones. Tears streamed down Jenna's face. "We have to help her," she whispered. "Emily needs our help." But how could we help a ghost? What could we possibly do? I wanted to scream. I wanted to run. But my legs felt like lead, rooted to the spot by a fear so profound it was paralyzing. The temperature plummeted, my breath formed icy clouds in the air, the candles sputtered, casting long, grotesque shadows that danced and twisted like living things. "The planchette moves on its own," Suddenly the planchette flew off the board, spinning across the floor and landing with a clatter in the corner. We all gasped, scrambling back, our eyes wide with terror. The candle went out, plunging us into absolute darkness. The only light came from the storm outside, flashes of lightning illuminating the room for a fleeting second, followed by the deafening roar of thunder. We huddled together, our breaths shallow and panicked. We could hear it now. A low, mournful sob coming from the corner where the planchette lay. Then, in the darkness, we heard a voice. It was faint, a ghostly whisper, but filled with an urgency that chilled us to the bone. "Run," it said, "run now." The footsteps above started again, heavier this time, closer, coming towards the attic door. Something was coming for us. As if on cue, a faint glow emanated from the Ouija board in the corner. We watched in horror as the planchette moved again, spelling out a single terrifying word, R-U-N. Racing out into the storm, panic surged through me, a cold, unrelenting wave that made my heart race and my breath quicken. The room seemed to close in around us, the shadows growing longer and more menacing. I didn't need to be told twice. The urgency in the air was palpable, a silent scream that propelled us into action. We scrambled to our feet, stumbling over each other in our haste to get away. The floorboards creaked ominously beneath our frantic steps, adding to the cacophony of our escape. We didn't look back, didn't dare to see what was behind us. The fear of the unknown was a powerful motivator, driving us forward with reckless abandon. We raced through the house, our hearts pounding like drums in our chests. Every corner we turned, every door we flung open felt like a gamble with fate. We burst out of the front door and into the raging storm. The sudden change from the oppressive indoors to the chaotic outdoors almost disorienting. The wind whipping our hair, the rain stinging our faces like tiny needles. The storm was relentless, but it was a welcome distraction from the terror behind us. We didn't stop running until we were far away from that house, our legs burning and our lungs screaming for air. The adrenaline coursing through our veins kept us moving, kept us from collapsing in exhaustion, far away from the terror that lurked within. The house, now a distant silhouette, seemed to watch us with malevolent eyes. We huddled together under a large oak tree, the branches providing a meager shelter from the storm. The rain continued to pour, but it felt like a cleansing, washing away the fear bit by bit. Gasping for breath, our bodies trembling with fear and adrenaline. We were safe for now, but the memory of what we had escaped would haunt us for a long time to come. We never spoke about that night again. It was as if an unspoken pact had been made, a silent agreement to bury the terror deep within us. But the memory lingered, a dark stain on our minds. Every creak of the floorboards, every gust of wind against the windows brought it all rushing back. The feeling of being watched, the sound of those footsteps echoing in the silence of the night. The chilling whisper of Emily's voice, they haunted our dreams, our waking moments. It was as if she was still there, trapped between our world and the next. We had gone looking for a thrill, a bit of harmless fun. A night to remember, we had said, not knowing how true those words would become. Instead, we had opened a door to something dark and terrifying, something beyond our understanding, something we could never unsee, never forget. The images were burned into our minds, a constant reminder of our folly. Even now, years later, I still feel a shiver run down my spine whenever I see an old Ouija board. The memories come flooding back, unbidden and unwelcome. I know the truth, it's not a game. It's a portal, a gateway to the unknown, to things that should remain hidden. And sometimes the things on the other side, they don't want to be disturbed. They linger, waiting for another chance to cross over. So we live with the knowledge, the fear that one day they might find a way back. And when they do, we will be waiting, haunted by the past and ready for the future.